Welcome to the Sleep Dives channel. Ever wonder why it's so easy to fall into some habits, but others just don't stick? Well, we're diving deep into James Clear's Workbook for Atomic Habits to find out. And let me tell you, it boils down to one massive idea. Your habits aren't just actions. They're basically a mirror reflecting who you think you are. And this is the quote that really kicks it all off. It's this two-way street, right? A constant loop. The things you do, they reinforce your identity, and then your identity, in turn, shapes what you do. It's this feedback loop that is the absolute secret sauce to making changes that don't just fade away after a week. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. First up, we'll look at identity as the root of all habits. Then we'll get into crafting the identity you actually want. After that, we'll unpack the four-step habit loop, introduce the four laws of change, and finally, dig into that very first law, make it obvious. All right, first section, identity, the root of habits. This is the foundation for lasting change. And this is where so many of us, myself included, have gone wrong in the past. We get obsessed with the outcome, right? The goal. But what Clear argues is that this is completely backwards. The question we should be asking isn't, what do I want to get? It's, who do I want to be? Just look at the difference here. An outcome-based habit is like, I want to lose 20 pounds. It's got an endpoint. And what happens when you get there? Often, the motivation just evaporates. But an identity-based habit, that's about saying, I am a healthy person. See the shift? Suddenly, every good choice isn't some horrible chore. It's a vote you're casting for the person you want to be. It's you proving to yourself who you really are. So, how do we actually start crafting this new identity? Well, luckily, it's not some big, complicated thing. The book lays out a really simple two-step process to get started. It's this simple. 1, you decide the type of person you want to become. And I mean really decide. Get clear on it. Are you a writer, an artist, a runner? And then step 2, and this is the crucial bit, you prove it to yourself with small wins. Every single tiny action you take is like a piece of evidence. It's another vote you're casting for that new identity, building up this mountain of proof that says, yes, this is who I am now. And this question becomes your guide, your North Star. Anytime you're faced with a choice, you just ask yourself, what would your desired identity do? What would a healthy person do? What would a writer do? It completely reframes the decision. It's not about what you feel like, it's about what your ideal self would do. It's such a game changer. Okay, so we've got the why sorted. It's all about identity. Now let's peel back the layers and get into the how. Let's look at the hidden engine that's running behind the scenes, powering every single thing we do. And that engine is called the habit loop. You can think of it like a neurological feedback loop. It's your brain's little shortcut program that runs on autopilot for pretty much all human behavior. It has 4 distinct stages, so let's break them down. So step 1 is the cue. This is just the trigger, the thing that kicks the whole process off. It could be your phone buzzing, the smell of coffee, walking into a room, anything that predicts there's a reward coming. Next up, step 2, the craving. Now, this is the real motivational force. And here's a brilliant insight from the book. You don't actually crave the habit. You crave the change in state that it brings. You're not craving a cigarette, you're craving the feeling of relief. You're not craving TV, you're craving entertainment. Which leads us to step 3, the response. This is the habit itself, the thing you actually do. Whether you do it or not really depends on how motivated you are, and honestly, how much effort it takes. And finally, step 4, the reward. This is the prize at the end, and it does 2 really important things. First, it satisfies that craving we just talked about. And second, it teaches your brain, hey, that worked. Let's remember this loop for next time. So if you want to boil it down even more, you can think of the whole loop in 2 phases. You've got the problem phase, that's the cue and the craving. Your brain is saying something's up. And then you've got the solution phase, the response and the reward. That's you taking action and solving the problem. And this is where it all gets really practical. Because if the habit loop is like the blueprint for your behavior, then what James Clear gives us next is basically the user manual, a simple framework for how to actually change it. He calls them the 4 laws of behavior change, and it's brilliant because each law lines up perfectly with one step of the habit loop. For a good habit, you want to make it obvious, make it attractive, make it easy, and make it satisfying. And if you want to break a bad habit, well, you just do the exact opposite. So let's dive into that first one, the first law, make it obvious. This is really the starting point for any change. The reason this law is so foundational is because our brains are basically prediction machines. They are constantly scanning for cues and running programs without us even thinking about it. Clear gives these great examples, like a paramedic who can just spot illness, or a military analyst who just sees a threat. It's subconscious. And that's exactly how our own habits operate. So, how on earth do you fight something that's automatic? Well, there's this amazing system from the Japanese railways called pointing and calling. The train operators literally have to point at signals and call out what they see. It sounds simple, right? But what it does is it forces an automatic behavior up into the conscious mind. And this simple act of awareness cuts down on errors massively. And that is the core lesson of the first law. It's so simple, but we forget it all the time. You can't change what you don't see. So many of our bad habits just run in the background on autopilot. The very first step to changing them is just to become aware of them, to point and call them out to yourself. So, let's bring this all together into something you can actually use. First, decide on that identity you want to build. Next, just start paying attention. Start noticing the cues that trigger your habits. And the goal here isn't perfection, and it's definitely not about judging yourself. It is purely about awareness. Because at the end of the day, changing your habits is really all about changing your identity. And that journey always starts with one small step, not some giant leap. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What is one tiny habit you could start today, just one, that would cast a vote for the person you truly want to become?